we go.
Okay, thank you. I hereby open the regular session of the Planning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
I'll do the roll call. Good evening, commissioners. Mark Russ sitting in for Sandy Belson tonight. Commissioner Salazar.
Present.
Commissioner Quavula.
Here.
Commissioner Gill.
Here.
Commissioner Bergen.
Here.
And Commissioner Buck. Absent. And I don't know if it's Commissioner McKinley has resigned from the Planning Commission. If people weren't aware of that, hopefully they were. So she is also absent as listed on the agenda.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? All right.
Is Commissioner Landon still on the commissioner, just absent, or did he leave for Utah?
Yes, Commissioner Landon also resigned from the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no adjustments for the agenda, we can now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we have the flag, sir?
Yes. 1 minute.
Thank you.
My mouse is not working, pardon me. Pardon me.
No problem, take your time.
There. Why isn't it? I'm not finding it. Share screen. There.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to approval of the minutes from February 23rd, 2022, March 1st, 2022, and June 7th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes from the February 23rd, March 1st, or June 7th meetings? Commissioner Bergen?
Thank you. I had emailed a couple of items over to staff earlier today. Let me pull that up in my email. Let's see. On February 23rd, this one's actually regarding you, Commissioner Salazar. It shows a few times abstain was not in attendance. Abstain and not in attendance are two different items. And so those should reflect as not in attendance and not as abstain. And then on the June 7th meeting minutes, I'm just hoping for some further clarification or fellow commissioners to remind me. It mentioned that Commissioner McKinley led the pledge. Andy and I were the only two commissioners in person, and I feel like Andy led the pledge on that. I'm not sure if that is an important detail, but I feel like I remembered that differently. And those are the only two that I had.
That's what I recall as well around Chair Landon leading the pledge. Commissioner Quavula?
Yes, I just had a recommendation. This could be appended to the minutes if the rest of the commission agrees. Being that we were discussing some matters of relatively important processes during those meetings, I was wondering if we could append the link to the YouTube recordings of our commission meetings. And then I also have a question for staff in that how long is staff going to maintain, how long does staff intend to maintain those YouTube recordings? Because I think that without a really detailed written minutes, that I think those YouTube recordings are kind of essential.
Christina, can you provide any guidance on that, or any staff really?
I can't answer the question on how long the YouTube recordings will be retained, but I wouldn't suggest putting the link in the minutes, because if we link it in the minutes, it requires us to permanently maintain the recording as a link. I believe the recordings would be subject to permanent retention or very long retention times as a document that is a file that the city has, but I'm less comfortable with including them as links. And I think it's also not a necessarily the proper way to make sure that that recording stays available. Springfield Oregon Speaks is a really good way to maintain access to those links for people that want to go back and reference it. And I'm sure that if Mark doesn't know, Sandy could probably discuss at the next meeting how long things will remain archived on Springfield Oregon Speaks. But that's what I would recommend. And then if wherever those minutes get posted, if they get posted to Springfield Oregon Speaks, I would just suggest making sure that the video can be found in the same place that the minutes are located. So somebody who goes to look at the minutes would find the link, but the link doesn't actually become part of the permanent retention minutes.
I would agree.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you for that. As I was saying, I think that the minutes are great that I read for this meeting as kind of a de minimis sort of minutes, but without, asking them to be fleshed out in a document. I do think it would be important to somehow or another either capture that recording or maybe there's a way to do automatic transcription or something on it. I don't know, but I'm just saying that to my thought, the minutes I'm seeing are really minimal. Thanks.
And I'll just chime in that I would agree on Springfield Oregon Speaks is intended to be that clearinghouse of information, and also defer to Sandy when she returns. But also there's been a lot of effort and work towards intentionally having the minutes be de minimis. And so that's intentional at this point. And so, but I agree that having access to the videos would be important and intended to be provided through Springfield Oregon Speaks.
They are posted there usually the next day in Springfield Oregon Speaks.
Any thoughts from any other commissioners on the points that were raised? I mentioned my agreement with Commissioner Bergen's corrections. Any other thoughts on either that item or what Commissioner Quavala brought up around the YouTube links and minutes? Commissioner Quavala?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see a kind of a hands raised, whether they think the de minimis minutes are a good idea or in issues that are perhaps of more import, if more should be captured in the future. Because I think that's an important subject.
I have something to, I don't know if I may.
Yeah, Commissioner Bergen, go ahead.
Commissioner Quayle, I have a really hard time with this too, because in a lot of other volunteer capacities, the minutes have been completely, for lack of a better phrase, stripped down to the motion and the yays or nays, and not any detail at all. So when I'm reading through these, there's already a lot more detail in these than I have seen in the past or in other organizations, other nonprofits. And I know this is government, so that's a little different, but that's just what I wanted to share is when I've seen it be very minimal. It is interesting. So I don't know that I have an opinion either way on if there's more detail or less detail on that. So sorry, I'm not any help on that.
I guess I'll throw in my 2 cents and then I'll let you go, Christina. I see your hand raised. Yeah, and I guess the minutes are helpful as a public record for transparency reasons for the broader community. That being said, I think Springfield Oregon Speaks is a great tool for being, as Mark said, a clearinghouse for all the information of how we got to a decision and the actual recordings of the meetings, that we're not trying to keep any information from the public. And I would imagine that anyone who is savvy enough to find the minutes would also be savvy enough to find these recordings in Springfield, Oregon Speaks as well. So it's not a matter of accessibility, increased accessibility, in my opinion, or increased transparency to have more detail in the minutes, because we do have all of that information that we were presented with, as well as the recordings of our meetings as well. So those are my 2 cents. Christina, go ahead.
Just some information, not necessarily city attorney's office doesn't necessarily have a strong opinion about this, but Robert's Rules of Order, which generally is what the city would follow unless there's a more specific requirement, for example, in state public meetings law, basically says that the minutes capture like the official actions of the body. So it would capture the motions, the any amendments to those points of order, points of information. I think it's challenging in that this body doesn't typically use the formal structure of Robert's rules for most of its decision making. And so therefore some discussion then in a more formal body might occur through the making of amendments to main motions, and through that process that would automatically get captured in minutes, is not captured in that way through your minutes. The Oregon Public Meetings Law requires a little bit more information than Robert's Rules of Order would require. And I'm just trying to get that pulled up right now. But I would say that generally it requires sort of a capture of the subjects discussed and a description of the conversation, but who said what or who was on which side of an issue, other than the result of the final vote taken and who was on which side of the issue, are generally like it would not be appropriate under either Robert's rules or the public meetings law to capture for minutes a transcription level of detail. And from a city attorney's office perspective, a transcription level of detail can be problematic in that your body makes decisions that are often appealable to the Land Use Board of Appeals. The findings adopted by this entity are supposed to speak as to the reasons for your decisions. And so if there is highly detailed minutes, that can potentially create more appealable issues or more work on the part of the city having to defend a decision of the Planning Commission if there's something in just the more content sort of that's not part of the official decision that you provide to an appellant, for example, in high level of detail about what was discussed in the meeting, it can be more problematic. But that's not to say that this level of detail is the right level of detail, just that I have cautioned staff against a transcription level of detail in the past for appeal reasons. And then also I think, Mark or Sandy could speak more to this, but staff resources is another issue with the transcription.
Thanks, Christina. That's very helpful. I think technically we can move forward with me just approving the minutes with corrections, but I think because there's been quite a bit of discussion around this, I'd like to take a motion. Christina, is that okay to take just wanted to check with you to see if that's okay to take a motion on approval of these minutes?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I'd love to hear a motion from the commission.
I move we approve the minutes with corrections.
Second.
Commissioner Gill, could I ask for a level of specificity regarding the corrections that you want, all the corrections that were mentioned, including the, I don't know if the request to add the YouTube link onto the minutes was taken off the table or not. So just wanted to check about that.
I move to approve the minutes for the 3 meetings described, including the corrections referenced by Commissioner Bergen, but not to include the link to the recording based on the staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, can we get a roll?
Yes. Commissioner Buck is absent. Commissioner Bergen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gill,
Aye.
Commissioner Quavula,
No.
Commissioner Salazar.
Aye. All right, thanks, everyone. With that motion, the minutes are approved with corrections noted in the motion. So now we'll be taking business from the audience. This is the time in our agenda for the public to provide testimony on any topic relevant to the Planning Commission that is not otherwise on the agenda tonight. I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep yourselves on mute until you are called to provide public testimony. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or press *9 if joining by phone. If you are in person, please fill out a request to speak card and present it to the Planning Commission assistant. When called upon to speak, please state your name and mailing address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Sarah, do we have anyone in the council chambers who has filled out the request to speak card?
Yes, we have Mr. Wyrick. Would you please come here and I will. And state your name and your address. And I will. I mean, we're not sure.
Microphone's on. Sorry about that. Commissioners, were you able to hear?
I was not able to hear Mr. Wyrick.
Give us
Now
a
we
second.
got, yeah.
Yep, now we're on.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Thank you.
My name is Dennis Wyrick, and I'm the chair of the BPAC. And with the new appointment of the BPAC representative, I wanted to sit in on the meeting and offer my support. That's all I need to say, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyrick, and thank you for your service on the BPAC. Sarah, are there any other folks in the chambers who would like to give testimony?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, and I see no one in the queue with raised hands. Are there anyone who has phoned in?
Not that I see.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the Willamette Greenway Development Permit. And Christina, I think you'll be sharing the statement of legal rights.
Yes. The role of the Planning Commission is to conduct public hearings and to make decisions about land use matters in Springfield. In making those decisions, the commission must apply the law of Springfield that existed when the application was filed and cannot vary from or change that law. Members of the Planning Commission are to be unbiased. Before the start of the hearing, members of the Planning Commission must state whether they have any conflicts of interest, such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or regarding the land in question. If such a potential conflict exists, the commissioner must state whether he or she is without actual bias and whether he or she would like to step down from the Planning Commission during the case. Planning commissioners will also state whether they've discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have any independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a recent visit to the site in question or other knowledge. If any of the planning commissioners have had such contacts, they will disclose the substance of that contact. If a planning commissioner has independent knowledge of relevant facts, the planning commissioner will summarize those facts. During the time for public testimony, a witness may challenge the impartiality of a planning commissioner and may rebut the substance of a commissioner's knowledge of the facts. The commissioner in question may respond to such challenge. A copy of the procedures and agenda for today's hearing and copies of the staff reports have been posted on springfieldoregonspeaks.org. Any person with an interest in today's agenda may offer relevant oral or written testimony or both. If you want the Planning Commission to consider your testimony and to preserve your right to appeal the decision to the City Council and ultimately to the Land Use Board of Appeals, you must testify orally or in writing before the Planning Commission closes their written record. You must raise an issue clearly enough so that people can understand what it is and offer evidence in support of it, or else you cannot raise that issue on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. If you're the applicant, you must raise concerns about any conditions of approval clearly enough to allow the Planning Commission to respond to preserve your right to seek damages in circuit court. If you feel you need more time to prepare evidence or testimony for the Planning Commission, you can ask the commission to hold open the record or to continue the hearing. You must make that request before the chair closes the public portion of the hearing. Please make sure your testimony is related to the applicable criteria. The criteria for Willamette Greenway overlay permit are in Springfield Development Code section 3.4-280L, which are the Willamette Greenway development standards for mixed use districts in Glenwood. The criteria described in more detail in the staff report on springfieldoregonspeaks.com and will be summarized by staff in the presentation this evening. Demonstrations from the audience are prohibited. Comments from the audience or comments from the phone or online, including the chat box that are out of turn, will not be part of the record. And so, Chair, it is now appropriate to open the public hearing and ask if any planning commissioner wishes to declare any potential conflict of interest, ex parte contact, or independent knowledge of relevant facts.
Thank you, Christina. I now open the public hearing, and I'd like to ask planning commissioners to disclose potential conflicts of interest and also to disclose any ex parte contacts or independent knowledge of relevant facts. Mark, could we get a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Bergen,
Potential conflict of interest being a practicing real estate broker and actually have a active listing about a block and a half away on East 19th.
Commissioner Gill,
I don't have any conflict of interest, ex parte communication, or independent knowledge of the site. I do drive past it on a regular basis.
Commissioner Quavula,
No ex parte contact and no conflict of interest. I have, however, surveyed in the area and actually considerably along that bank on that property and on others. So, but that was years ago. I don't feel it will affect my decisions.
Commissioner Salazar,
Thank you, Mark. I have no potential conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts, and my independent knowledge of the site is also just limited to having driven by the site. Sorry, we'll now take a staff report from Melissa.
Good evening, commissioners. It's good to see you all again. I'm just going to try to see if I can share my screen. Hold on just 1 second. All right, there we go. So tonight, the commission will consider a request for a Willamette Greenway development permit in the Glenwood neighborhood. The proposed development consists of adding structural fill to a portion of the Willamette Greenway overlay district that excludes the riparian resource area. The proposed fill project aims to meet FEMA requirements in order to remove the subject site from the floodplain zone and prepare the subject site for future development. Here's the subject site in the Glenwood neighborhood. It consists of 5 properties and approximately 44 acres. And the subject site is zoned employment mixed use. Oh, whoa, that just, sorry. All right. The following diagrams are meant to provide some context and background info for this request. These diagrams are also included and further described in the staff report. Figure 1, the Willamette Greenway Overlay District, shown in green spots. Figure 2 is the established greenway setback line, shown in purple. And that follows the property lines of the 5 properties. Figure 3 shows the riparian resource area, shown in blue diagonal stripes. And then figure 4, the special flood hazard area with the floodplain, shown in light blue. The following aerial photos from the applicant's submittal provide additional views of the subject site and the adjacent Willamette River. Note that the building shown on no longer there today. This is a site map of the applicant's proposed fill project, which is also included in the applicant's submittal. The shaded green strip is where the proposed structural fill would be added in the Willamette Greenway Overlay District. This area is outside the 75-foot wide riparian resource area. Also shown on this map are the 6-foot high perimeter fence in light blue, structures that have since been removed in red, and areas of structural fill outside of the Willamette Greenway Overlay District in yellow. The applicable criteria for this development request are found in the Springfield Development Code, section 3.4-280L. under the Willamette Greenway Overlay District in the Glenwood neighborhood. There are 12 criterions as shown on these slides, and the staff report addresses each of these criterion with findings and conditions of approval if needed. I'll go ahead and go through these slides and have folks read through the different criterion. It's also listed on Springfield, Oregon Speaks as well. All right. The staff report for tonight's meeting inadvertently left out findings in regard to one of the criteria, specifically number 4, which reads, the maintenance of public safety and protection of public and private property, especially from vandalism and trespass, shall be provided to the maximum extent practicable. And the findings would include that in the last 5 years, there were 16 total calls for police services. 5 calls were in response to an alarm, 2 calls for trespass, 1 call for illegal dumping. And out of all of those 16 calls, only 2 resulted in filed cases with the police. And that was 1 for theft and 2 for towing of a nuisance vehicle. There were no calls related to vandalism, and no structures exist on the subject site today. These findings will be, just going back to these findings that were inadvertently missed or left out, they will be included in the staff report for the continued hearing on August 16th. But in conclusion, the existing 6-foot fence, 6-foot high perimeter fence, which is proposed to remain, encourages public safety and protection from trespass and vandalism for the limited scope of this proposed development. As you can see on the staff report, all criteria are met in this proposal with the exception of these 2 conditions of approval. The first one is that the Willamette Greenway development permit will be granted only if the applicant's site plan review application is also approved by the city using the approval criteria in the development code. I also list the site plan application number. It is my intention to have the site plan application decision issued by the August 16th public hearing. I will try my best. Number 2, the applicant must, the applicant must implement the best management practices, BMPs, required in the DEQ erosion and sediment control plan, otherwise known as Schedule A of Permit 1200-C, for all fill activities that are subject to this Willamette Greenway Overlay Development Permit. And to wrap up my presentation, here again is the site map for the proposed fill project. And just a reminder that because of insufficient public notice for this public hearing, the hearing will be continued and the record held open to the Planning Commission's August 16th meeting. Thank you, commissioners. Please let me know if you have any questions. I believe the applicant or the representative is also in attendance for their presentation and any follow-up questions you may also have. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for that report. Commissioner Cuevla, do you mind if we, in the agenda, we have presentation from the applicant and then public testimony, and then we have an opportunity to take questions. Is that okay? Great, thank you. So next I would like to call on the applicant for their presentation.
She has nothing to say at this time. If there's questions, I'm sure that she would be more than happy to address them.
Excellent. Well, we'll ask that you stay on the line so that we can ask questions if there are any from the commission. Thank you. All right, at this point, I would like to call for public testimony. We'll call the testimony tonight in order of those in favor of the application, those neutral to the application, and then those opposed to the application. If you are here in person, please fill out a request to speak card and present it to the Planning Commission assistant. If you are joining us online, please indicate if you would like to speak in favor, neutral, or opposed to the application using the raised hand feature on Zoom, or press star 9, if joining by phone. When called upon to speak, please state your name and mailing address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Sarah, do we have anyone in the council chambers or online who is would like to speak in favor of the application?
Not that I see at this moment.
All right. Anyone neutral?
Not that I see at this moment.
Okay. And anyone opposed?
Not that I see at this moment.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. And all right. So we don't need any staff response to public testimony and no rebuttal from the applicant. So we'll move on to questions from commissioners. Commissioner Quivla.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Third time I raised my hand here. I guess I finally got it up at the right time. First of all, a question for staff. Do we have, in fact, that item that's mentioned in criteria 2 in the packet? The criteria for approval? I didn't see that.
You mean the condition of approval?
Yes, the
Commissioner Coppola?
condition of approval number 2 with best management practices.
Yes, so my understanding is this is one of the additions to the applicant submittal, the 200+ pages. And I believe it's the, I don't recall the exact attachment off the top of my head, but I believe it is included in the.
It's in there. And when did the revised package get to us? Sorry.
So yeah, no problem. The revised package, there was no revised application. We just noticed during our review that it had expired in 2020. So we wanted to make sure that those conditions were still carried through with this application.
And I am working on the page number for you of that.
Okay. I apparently didn't find it in the packet, so it might be my problem. I do have a
very long packet.
It is.
I do have a couple of questions, and I'll preface them by saying that I'm not certain that I'm bringing these up at the exact time that is best, because I know there's going to be a site plan review done for this. But maybe if I bring questions forward now, if they have not been envisioned as part of the site plan review, that perhaps can I bring them forward now?
That would be great.
Okay.
For me.
Great. Okay. First of all, I looked at some of the cross sections. I couldn't really tell how deep the fill was going to be at that 75-foot line. Looked like it might be 5 to 6 feet at the most. Is that correct? Roughly?
Could we have the applicant respond to that question? She's here and available if that's appropriate.
That'd be great.
And I am ready with that reference after that, Chair.
State your name.
Hello, this is Kelly Wood. I'm with Wildish, and I'm here to answer questions. And I first wanted to let you guys know that I did submit comments to this, including the renewal letter for the DEQ NPDS 1200C. DEQ is a little behind on their permitting, and so all of the NPDS for the whole state, 1200A, 1200C, all of them are being rewritten still, but I have a letter that says that it's good through 2025. So it's still valid, the sediment and control plan. And so that was attached to the comments. And then, yeah, the fill, it definitely varies. The southern end of the property has a lower elevation, but it ranges anywhere from about 1 foot to about 5 to 6 feet is based on what we've calculated.
Okay, great. And on the same subject, what the cross sections I saw showed almost a vertical fill line. Is that really what is envisioned, or is there angle of repose that's envisioned at a less than vertical?
Yeah, our intention is probably to slope it closer to 3 to 1, so that we can hydro seed it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, along the same along the same thing is the composition of the fill. Would that all be clean fill, being that it's being that close to the water, so that we wouldn't be looking at any scrap asphalt or building materials or roadway excavation that might be contaminated?
Yeah, so under the definition of the DEQ clean construction fill, there are certain things that are allowed in there, including like concrete debris, as long as it doesn't have rebar and that sort of thing. But we do monitor everything that comes in. That's part of what we, monitoring and keeping track, making sure that there's no, contaminated material, but also no vegetation. That's a really important thing when it comes to fill material, so that you don't end up with small sinkholes and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, yes, and then also keeping on that you anticipate one of my questions here is I've seen an awful lot of fill being deposited in areas that carries noxious weeds, and as a matter of fact, an awful lot of recent projects I've seen carrying horsetail, and that's darn near ineradicable, except through repeated use of very, very heavy herbicide use. So will the fill be monitored for noxious weeds, or can we expect to see horsetail all over the bank?
Well, generally the fill comes from, projects in the area, but part of most construction projects is they have to strip off that vegetation first so that it's not included. And our plan, is to, monitor and go out there, but we'll be hydro seeding, with weed free and noxious free, of course, and keeping an eye on it. We have other properties in the area across the way, and we bring in third parties to help us with some of the management and looking for the vegetation to make sure that other items don't get, start getting spread over there. So
yeah,
it would be the same.
The noxious weeds are bad enough really when they're on a street project or on a building project, but right next to the edge of the river would be that'd be a real unfortunate thing to see a bunch of noxious weeds brought into there, particularly, like I said, the horsetail. Last question. I understand that there's going to be some temporary storm drain swales cut into between the top of bank and 75 foot.
Those are already in existence. So the majority of the property actually is already filled.
Okay.
And that's, so we have the 1200C specifically for stormwater management. But over the past 4 years of me monitoring, I've only ever seen a discharge once. And that was actually this kind of winter, spring, when we had just excessive rain. And so I'll go out there and monitor, but that we have so much vegetation and it's so, it filters it. I actually even took a sample to compare it, which isn't required under the permit, but I was curious against background, and we were about 3 times less than what was in the river. So we'll continue monitoring for it.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. But there's no additional temporary storm drain envisioned in that 75 foot from the top of the bank?
There is not.
Great. Seems to be said a little differently in the packet, but thank you very much. You've answered all my questions well. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Quivola. Commissioner Bergen.
Thank you. My question is sort of more on the history of the land, and I don't know who the best person to answer this would be, whether it's staff or the applicant, or maybe even a fellow commissioner. The areas that we're looking at right now for the fill, was this by design initially to have these areas that were not level, or was this just the way that the land was initially when the land came? I guess I'm trying to find if there was a reason for there to be an opportunity now for the fill, if that was by design, or if that's just the way that the land has always been. I hope that makes sense, the question I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
Christina, are you able to answer that? I see your hand raised.
I might be able to answer that, but first I wanted to give the citation to the where the permit is in the record for Commissioner Quivola. So if you go to attachment 2, which is the applicant's submittal, it's the very last portion of that attachment 2, it starts on page 200 of 262 in that packet. It's the attachment 9 to their application. And it's on a DEQ letterhead, starts and then goes from there. And I don't know that I understood Commissioner Bergen's question about Phil. I'm happy, I think the staff report may discuss this, but the applicant obtained a fill permit previously for everything up to the Greenway Overlay District and has been working on filling that area under the FEMA floodplain Clomar permit. And then this application is sort of the last part of that overall project to fill under the Clomar permit. So I'm not sure which areas you're specifically asking about.
It looks like the applicant would like to address that
Yeah.
point.
Hello. All right. So to give a little bit of background, the plant 1 was actually the processing area for gravel extraction upriver, and it began in the 50s. And so much of what we see as the land and the property now was actually water and had been dug out. And so a lot of the existing, actually most of the existing properties actually already fill. And knowing the area, Wildish had anticipated at some point it would be nice to develop. They had actually gone through FEMA and done a Clomar to adjust what was mapped as the floodway when new contour with, I think it was 1 foot or 5 foot increments instead of 100 foot actually show that the property is outside of the floodway. And so for development, they pursued a floodplain. Well, they came to the city originally and went through, had a meeting to figure out what was needed to develop this property. And the city basically said, you know, you really have got to get your federal stuff lined up. And so one of the first steps they did, you know, in addition to like the wetland delineation, biology and all of that, is to pursue the conditional letter for map revision. And actually that permit was based on filling up to the 75-foot riparian setback. That's where this got a little bit tricky because the FEMA basically all of the approvals are based on 75 feet. And then Wildish obtained a floodplain development permit also based on 75 feet. And then also, of course, the stormwater and the LDAP. And so they were all based on the 75-foot fill and all the calculations, but it wasn't until we were thinking we were almost done that, you know, the question I was kind of asking, given that it's not actually riparian, was this something that they plan to pursue? And so interestingly, the original elevation, you know, who knows what it was at this point because there's already a lot of fill. You can see big chunks. So this is just getting it, you know, in some places a foot higher to get it out of the floodplain so it can be developed.
Commissioner Bergen, does that answer your question?
It does, and I appreciate the history there. I think what I was looking for, and I think that you shared that with me, was if what we're trying to fill was the way that the land was, or if there was an entity that came in and intentionally dug out to make sure, whether it was to avoid flood or what have you. But I just wanted to make sure that wasn't something that was done in the past that we're trying to undo now. But it sounds like that's not the case. So thank you for that. A great explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergen. Commissioner Cuevla.
Yeah, as part of my surveying in that area, I actually had the opportunity to look at some maps from the 1800s and actually aerial maps that were done in the 30s, actually aerial photography from the 30s. And all that land was underwater and it was meandered. And it's been filled bit by bit over the years to the point that it's dry now. But the river used to meander back and forth between any of the hills that you can see and flooded all periodically every winter in all that territory. So that land was underwater years ago because all the land in the area was underwater years ago.
Thank you, Commissioner Cuevla. Are there any other questions from commissioners at this point for staff or applicant? All right, hearing none. We do have an opportunity in the future to take questions as well as Melissa mentioned before, due to an issue with the original meeting notice, the staff have recommended that we continue the public hearing to our regular meeting on August 16th at City Hall and on Zoom. Do I have a motion? I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to that date.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Could
Or
you,
do we need specific language, Christina?
yes, please. And I'm sorry that I was late. I was going to post it in the chat, but I was a little late on that. And I think I accidentally closed out the window that I had it in. But if you could move to continue it to the Planning Commission's regular meeting on August 16th at 7 p.m. We need date, time, and location certain. And so also reference that it's at City Hall and on Zoom.
Okay, I will do my best to formulate that. So moved is just my favorite way to make the motion.
Commissioner Bergen, I have the email. Would you like me to make the motion? I can read it.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. I move to continue the public hearing until the Planning Commission's regular meeting at City Hall and on Zoom at 7 p.m. on August 16th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion to continue the public hearing to the Planning Commission's regular meeting on August 16th? All right, hearing none. Let's call a roll for the vote. Mark, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Bergen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gill,
Aye.
Commissioner Cravula,
Yes.
Commissioner Salazar.
Aye. All right, so the motion carries. 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor and none opposed. So we have a unanimous decision to continue the public hearing until August 16th at 7 p.m. In our next regular meeting. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that would be the election of a new commission chair due to the resignation of Commissioner Landon. Do we have any nominations for chair? Commissioner Bergen?
I nominate you, Commissioner Salazar.
Thank you. Any other nominations? All right, barring none, we'll move to a vote. Mark, would you be able to call the roll again?
Yes, and if I may, Chair, just a quick point of order. The script we're both working off of compared to the agenda for tonight. The agenda does have one item before business from the Planning Commission, which includes the item we're discussing now, but report of council action is listed on the agenda, but I imagine you could come back to that. I just want to point that out.
I have that. I think I flipped those in the script for tonight.
Oh, it's maybe coming.
Coming later, so I apologize for that.
Sorry about that. I'm happy to call the roll though for the matter on the table. So
Oh, thanks for that note, Mark.
Commissioner Bergen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gill,
Aye.
Commissioner Cravula,
Yes.
Commissioner Salazar.
I will respectfully abstain.
Great.
But I appreciate the election, and yeah, I'm excited to continue my duties as now chair. So now that we have a chair, then we will have to fill the role of vice chair. So do we have any nominations for vice chair? Commissioner Gill.
I nominate Commissioner Bergen for vice chair.
I will accept your nomination. Thank you for that. Wow. I was surprised.
Do I hear any other nominations? Excellent. Let's have another call for roll.
Commissioner Bergen,
Abstain.
Commissioner Gill,
Aye.
Commissioner Cravula,
Yes.
Commissioner Salazar, Chair
Aye.
Salazar, excuse me.
Thanks. Yes, and welcome to the team, Commissioner Bergen.
Thank you so much. Excited.
Excellent. Well, and now we'll have the final vacancy that we'll need to fill is Commissioner Landon's position on the BPAC, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Do we have any nominations?
Marie? You're on historic, so I don't know. I'm taking my name completely out of that.
I'd be willing to pick up a second. I'm on the CDAC, which meets fairly, not really often. And I think the BPAC doesn't either. And as someone who bike commuted for 18 years, perhaps I qualify.
If I can add to that, Commissioner Quavula, I honestly couldn't think of a better person to sit in that role. I just know that unfortunately for us, you're coming to an end at the end of this year. So I think that would be perfect as long as you didn't mind taking on that additional role, because you understand the biking more than probably any of us.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to take it on for a short period. It's light duty and I'm retired, so.
I think you would be an excellent addition as well. All right, do we have a formal nomination?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Quavula for the BPAC.
Excellent. Any other nominations? All right. Hearing none, may we have a final roll call, Mark?
Commissioner Bergen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gill,
I,
Commissioner Quavula,
Yes,
Chair Salazar.
Aye. All right, motion carries unanimously, and thank you for your service. Pulling double duty at the end of your tenure on the Planning Commission. Thank you, Commissioner Quavula. All right, and next item, just finding my space here. All right, next, Mark and Christina, correct me if I'm wrong. Next item I see on the agenda is reports on city council meetings.
Correct.
Commissioner Bergen.
Just had quick question on the votes we were just taking. Commissioner McGinley was also, her and I served as the on the governance committee for the code update. And I don't know if that is still moving forward. We haven't had a meeting this year, but if we needed to name someone in her place, and if now is the time to do that, or if we would see that another opportunity.
Should we wait till Sandy gets back at the next meeting for guidance on that, or do you feel, does anyone present today in today's meeting have ability to comment on that, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just chime in that I think it would be appropriate to wait for Sandy. I think she would probably share with you later on the agenda under business from the Public Works that there has been a planner hired to continue the code update work. And so I would envision that being reinvigorated potentially and rescoped. So I think that decision could be made a little bit later.
Excellent. I think we'll definitely want to circle back to that, at least at the next meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Bergen, for reminding us of that. All right. Any reports on city council meetings? And I apologize for the glare. Commissioner Quavula? You're on mute, Commissioner.
thanks. Yes, I attended my mandatory council work and regular session on the 20th of June. And among the stuff talked about was, let's see, art update with new murals, etc. And the new welcoming mural on Jim's Landing, the additions to the Springfield Flame, etc. There was a combination fire department update. They're still in merge mode, merging the city of Springfield and city of Eugene's fire departments. There was a few interesting questions by the council, including that the council does not want to pursue a fire district. So they don't want to pursue a separate taxing authority for the combination fire department. That's going to be discussed back in September. So there was that. And then the third item was the Main Street facilities plan. And that was led by Tom Boyott instead of the folks who usually have led our Main Street items. And they're going to continue, this council intends to continue listening sessions with businesses, stakeholders, and others who've provided input to the council, especially including bike, pedestrian, etc. Commissioner Woodrow said it'd be nice if they could actually get some ward by ward representation on that. A couple of the things that were discussed was, was needed additional business input, and that this is a direct quote from the mayor, 9 roundabouts and medians are dead. That plan is dead, and that the 20-year timeline for the project is entirely too long. He said this should not be the project for the rest of our lives. He also, another direct quote, nobody likes this plan. We need to acknowledge that we didn't get it right. So this discussion is start small, fit it in existing right-of-ways, no 7-mile plan, don't paint it with a broad brush. Not all Main Street needs medians or roundabouts, not 8 or 9 roundabouts, not 7, maybe 1 only at Bob Straub Parkway. Tom Boyott said that staff will come back in fall with a relook. The regular session, that was the work session. Regular session, supplemental budget. Some discussion of grants for the Ebert Warning Center, Habitat for Humanity, Filbert Grove Manufacturing Park, etc. The budget is done. Let's see. Getting shared revenue for gas, marijuana, etc. taxes from the state, that's coming in. The police levy was discussed. They're going to look at a police levy that's going to be about $230 per year for the average Springfield homeowner. And let's see. CDBG program was discussed, and the CDAC recommendations were all passed. So that was great to see that council support the work that we do on CDAC. So a couple of the items that are going to take place is going to fix some roofs on some buildings for St. Vincent de Paul. And then the second item was to plant street trees in areas that are economically disadvantaged and don't have street trees. So it was a good program that the city's going to lead. And that was, let's see, that was about it, I believe. Yes, that was it. Thank you.
Commissioner Quibble, I have one question, either for you or staff, if they could provide any information on this, is just for the updated communications plan for the new Main Street plan. I know it sounds like we're very early in this, but if the communications plan might come up before us sometime in the near future as in our role as a CCI, or if that's now in the hands of council.
I did not hear that one way or another. That'd be a great question for Sandy when she gets back, I'm sure.
Christina?
I can actually answer that question because I drafted the resolution that the council adopted. I'm just going to pull that up really quickly. And so the, I just want to make sure I get the reference right. So section D of subsection 1D of the resolution, which you can find on the city's Laserfish, it was resolution 2228, says that the city manager or designee is directed to prepare a supplemental community engagement plan for subsequent approval by the planning commission, and their role as committee for citizen involvement. And the supplemental engagement plan must be consistent with the resolution. So the essentially the council directs the city manager, but that gets, the work ends up getting done by Development of Public Works. And so at some point, you will, I don't know that there's a date that's been set or timing. I couldn't answer that question, but this will come before you sometime, likely in the fall, as a supplemental community engagement plan. I think it's intentional that the council recognizes some really wonderful community engagement was done, but there are definitely more input that they want to get. And so it would not be throwing out all of the community engagement that has been done to date, but it's going to be additional community engagement to kind of help resolve the remaining issues that the council's identified with the plan. And so that will come before you in your role as CCI. Great question.
Excellent. Thanks, Christina. And thanks, Commissioner Cuevla. Mark, did you have anything to add? I see you just turned on your.
I was just going to add that it would be good to touch base with Sandy on that when she returns. She manages the comprehensive planning program, so she'll know better how they're moving forward with that.
Absolutely. No, that's great to know that that's going to be coming back before us, so we can prepare for that. Any other city council meetings anyone has reports on? Okay, hearing none. Any other business from members of the Planning Commission? Commissioner Cuevla. Oh, you're on mute again.
Excuse me.
Happens
Yes,
to the best of us.
happens to me a lot. A few items from me. The first one I'd like to tell you is, by gosh, I got COVID, and so did my wife. And it was a mild case, and we really were very guarded about our behavior, but we went to a wedding reception and we took our masks down to have a few snacks, and that was the result of that. But we're both recovering from that. So I'm just going to put that out there for everyone to maintain your guard, because the stuff is still out there. And a couple other items that came up. I did discuss the Main Street already, but the other thing was, and I had a question for staff in regard to this, is the climate and equity rules. I'd understood that they were going to come up for a final, apparently a final approval. And I understand that the city is going to challenge these legally, unless they've been revised. And so my question is have the rules been implemented, and is our challenge still ongoing? And if so, have we been joined by other cities?
I'm happy to answer those questions. So temporary rules were adopted in May. The proposed permanent rules have been published. They are not significantly different in the areas that we were concerned about. There's, I think, of the very many concerns we've expressed, I think they may have fixed one issue out of 50 pages of issues. They did also make an additional change that took the rules in a worse direction. So for the city, that will be pretty costly and requiring a redoing of alternatives analysis for transportation system plan projects that are already in the transportation system plan, regardless of the outreach or alternatives analysis that was done when those projects were originally adopted, but apply to things like the Gateway Beltline interchange area management plan that had a very significant NEPA alternatives analysis. That would have to be redone before the city could update the TSP under a major update, and would be very expensive for the city. There are several other projects that would be in the same position, including the one attached to the work that will be done on the 42nd Street levee. So we're very concerned about these rules. Generally, the way the rules are written and the prescriptive level of detail will just make it very difficult for Springfield to do climate and equity work in a way that will actually achieve results in Springfield. And that's the main reason that Springfield's been interested in appealing. I mean, initially we're interested in trying to provide really good feedback on how to change the rules to provide that flexibility and meet the objectives of the rules. Unfortunately, we haven't seen those changes, and they're scheduled to be adopted on Thursday this week. And they're not providing any more opportunity for public comment on those rules, even though they have made changes after the public comment was closed. So we are proceeding, very likely to file an appeal with the Oregon Court of Appeals. There are cities that have confirmed that they are joining us. I think we have at least 2 or 3 other cities at this point, and then strong interest from other cities in addition to that. I'm not going to name those cities because I haven't gotten permission to name them specifically, but I think that we will be looking at a pretty comprehensive geographic representation of the metropolitan planning organization areas, which are the they say they're the large urban areas, but they're really the they include some very small towns in those metropolitan planning areas. So I think it's pretty good geographic and size distribution among the cities that will be looking to challenge these rules in court.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm happy to provide more updates as we move on and share what information I can, knowing that some of it'll have to remain privileged. And unfortunately, the Planning Commission doesn't have that ability to hold an executive session. I would love to be able to share more of the details.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for that question, Commissioner Cuevila, and glad to hear or hope that you're feeling in better health as well. Any other business from planning commissioners? All right, hearing none, I'll now take business from the Department of Public Works.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know how much has been shared with you through Sandy, so I'll just probably highlight a few things. And I don't know if the commissioners know that our director, Tom Boyat, is retiring from the city effective at the end of the month, so in about a week and a half. So that position, I think, has been posted on the city's website. I did mention a few moments ago that we have hired a new senior planner to fill the code writing position. So we're excited about that. That person will start August 1st. And a bunch of other new planning positions are also advertised on the city's website. We're quite a bit of funding going towards new planning positions to do a lot of the state mandated work. So we're hoping to be successful in attracting a broad candidate pool to fill a number of different positions in planning there. And then I'll just also share, I'm sure all of you are aware, don't know if you've had an opportunity to participate in any of the world's championship events, but it was exciting to see at least one of the marathon runners run the other day down through downtown Springfield, myself personally, but I know there was a lot of excitement and energy around that for Springfield. So that was neat to see. So unless there's questions, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Commissioner Cuevila?
Yes, I wanted to offer my best wishes to Melissa Carino in her new endeavors. And I understand we also have another senior planner leaving us. Is that not correct, Mark?
So you alluded to Melissa leaving. I do want to thank her tonight. She is on vacation this week. And so thank you, Melissa, specifically for still stepping up while you're on vacation and joining us and presenting the item tonight. And Melissa has resigned her position from the city. Luckily for us, she's been generous with her time and offered to stay through the beginning of September, I believe. I have that right, Melissa. I might be signing you up for more than you bargained for there, but
You got it right. Thank you.
okay. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And if there's anything else you want to say about your resignation, I'll leave it to you. But and then I think Commissioner Cuevila, you may be alluding to Emma Newman has also resigned, our senior transportation planner. She's pursuing other interests as well. So one of those positions we've advertised for is also to backfill that vacancy left by Emma Newman. Again, luckily for us, Emma has agreed. I'm not sure this is 100% final yet. I think it's pretty close, but I believe Emma's going to join us on a contractual basis, at least part-time, for a temporary capacity to kind of backfill till we can fill that position permanently as well. Lots of moving pieces right now. I just will say COVID is definitely impacting the city staff and specifically Public Works Development Services Department. We've had a lot of people out unexpectedly over the last month or so. And so it's very busy right now, and we're trying to get address a lot of things with a lot of unexpected absences and moving pieces. So bear with us.
I just wanted to express my gratitude for all the staff in this meeting. New chair, this is the first time I've been acting chair and just jumped right in. But also, yeah, we're all performing without Sandy as well. And so just wanted to give kudos, thanks to Melissa. Wish you the best in your endeavors. And also thank you for joining us from vacation. I don't know if I would have made the same commitment, but that definitely shows your commitment to our work. And thanks also to Mark. It's big shoes to fill when Sandy's out, but you did great. It was a well-run meeting. All right, if there's no other business from the Development and Public Works Department, I will now adjourn the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well done, Mark.
And I stopped the recording now.